Hi guys, this is John. I wanted to show you, in my last quilt I had this sewn in there, and oops, that's not the piece that was sewn in. Where is it? I had this sewn in there, and I didn't have it sewn in right, and it was actually showing the edge, so I seam ripped it out to do a repair. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this on, and then I'll sew it back into place. It's actually a very easy repair to do. A lot of people don't like to do repairs on quilts because it can be a little tedious and a little hard. But if you do it properly, like I did, I seam ripped it right out. I'm going to quarter seam this. And make sure that I have that in right. On all edges. All my strands. Want to hold that up just a little bit. Put that back down and finish that. Oops. And now it's sewn back in. I don't have it ironed down, but I have this piece sewn in. Now all I have to do is iron that down, and then what I'll do is I'll sew it to one edge and then to the other, which isn't very difficult to do. So I'll just sew it right on this edge first. And this is how I do my repair. And I want to go back far enough so I catch these stitches here. So I'm actually going over where I've already seam ripped it once. This is a little bit twisted. I want to untwist it first so it lays nice and flat. And we'll go back here. And we'll just sew this right on. Do the 1/4 inch all the way down. I said I wasn't going to repair this, but I figured I might as well, since I was still at a position or point in the quilt where I could repair it easily. And that is done. There's that side. Now I still have to sew it onto this side. What I'll do is I'll take it over here and I'll do my 1/4 inch seam. And I'll lay this down nice and flat. And back it up past the stitches where I ripped them out. And I'll make sure that this is nice and straight. Like I said, a lot of people don't like doing repairs. To me, it's not a big deal. It's just part of the course. Okay. And go right over those stitches again. And my repair is done. When you open it up, you can see that the repair doesn't even look like it's been repaired. I have a few stitches here from where I ripped it out, and I'll just snip those right off nice and close. But it looks like it's never been repaired, and I got rid of that ugly little seam there that was part of the quilt, or part of the fabric edge that didn't have a pattern on it, and it was a very simple repair. And now I'll just take this to my rotary cutter and cut right along this so it's nice and straight and even. So that's how you do a repair if you mess up on your quilt. Hi guys, I'm back. Let's turn on this light so we have a little bit more light over here. When I sew on my longer edges, like the borders and in between the squares, I do pin sometimes. It does make it easier. I'll lay it out on the ironing board to make sure that it's nice and straight, and then I'll pin it on, because a lot of times where the blocks are built together and the edges come together, they're not as even as we would like them to be, but we know that this green piece is nice and even. So what I'll do is I'll lay that nice and flat, and then I will sew it. Like right here, you can see where it's actually sticking up over here because it's not cut perfectly straight. So where I fix my mistakes and make things straight is by sewing on a long straight piece, and I make sure that I have a 1/4 inch seam on the straight edge of the green, and I don't worry so much about the block itself, and that's how I fix that. So I'm all pinned up and I'm ready to go, and most sewing machines will sew right over the pins, so it's not like it's a big deal to worry about the pins being in there, and I just will sew right over those pins. Occasionally the needle will hit the pin and break. I've had that happen before, but for the most part sewing machines are built to go over the needles. And you can just pull them out later. But at this point where the fabric is so long, I will pin it because they are long, very, very long pieces, and we're dealing with a lot more fabric here. And by pinning it, I know that I'm keeping it in place. So, and with it being pinned, I can actually sew a little bit faster, and it doesn't take that long to pin on your long pieces, doing it right on the ironing board. Just make sure that you don't pin it to the ironing board. I've done that myself a few times. It's kind of frustrating. But this is the top I'm sewing on, and then I'll sew on the bottom, and then I'll sew on both edges. Everyone thinks quilting's really, really difficult, but it's really not. It's actually kind of fun because you're basically putting like a puzzle together. If you like to do puzzles, it's actually sort of like doing a puzzle. You're just piecing everything together. As long as you have your pieces in the right place. Now see, I can't see my white line where it's the 1/4 inch, but I know right here on my foot is 1/4 inch, so I'll make sure that this green edge is right where I normally sew, right on that foot, and I'll still have a 1/4 inch edge, and it comes out the other end, and I still have my 1/4 inch. Sometimes the heads get in the way, you just remove it if it does. Now these were both longer than my quilt center, my whole quilt, so I will actually take this and put it on my cutting board, and I will cut those straight. And I'll back up just a hair, and that is done, and we have that all set. I usually have my pin cushion right here to do it. A lot of times I'll have 2 pin cushions, one where is next to my sewing machine where I can just take these and stab them right back in, and the other one where I am actually doing the pinning. That way I don't have to move my pin cushion back and forth. But the top is attached now, and it's all nice and even. And the good thing about having this all done is the white will attach to this very easily, and the red will attach to the white very easily. After this is the easiest part, doing the borders. It's just straight stitches. You pin on the white onto this green, and you just go. It's very fast and quick. So the top's done, and I will be back to show you how to do the white and sides and stuff. Hi everyone, this is John. I just wanted to show you that a lot of times I lay out my quilt on the bed. I've already attached the bottom. Well, actually I have this upside down. This is the top and that's the bottom, and I have the sash attached to the top and bottom. And what I'm doing is I had 3 of these left, and what I did is I cut one of them in half. So I will sew them together and attach it. But what I wanted to show you is that I'll have this seam up on this edge, and on this side I'll have it opposite. It'll actually be down here. And then when I attach the white, I have another full width of fabric I'll attach and attach. But then the seams on the white ones, I will opposite. And that one will be over there. And same when I do the red. When I attach the red, the seam on the red will be down here and up there. And when I do the white again, I'll do it the same way. And that way my seams aren't lining up and they are kind of jagged. And then once it's all done, the border around it will be attached, and I will show you how to do that. But for right now, I need to sew this one together and that one together and attach them, and then I'll sew the white on the top, white on the bottom, and I'll trim off the excess, and then I'll sew these 2 together and those 2 together, and I'll sew them on the sides, and then I'll do the exact same thing with the red border. So that's how the borders are going to be attached. And I will get back to you as soon as I get that much done. Hi guys, it's me. I have all of my green attached now, and I'm going to attach my white strip because I'm doing mine with the white strip in between the green and the red, and then between the red and the binding I am having a white strip also. So I'm having 2 layers of white strips. I'm actually going across the top first and then across the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to face my fabric so it's facing face to face. And I'm just going to start it right on the edge. And what I do is I bunch all of my material up here so the weight of it's not weighing on me when I'm stitching out. I let the table support all of that fabric. It makes it easier for me to handle having it all up on the sewing table myself. But everyone's different and likes to sew their own way, so whichever's more comfortable for you. The good thing about doing the green and the white is that we have basically straight edge all the way on both materials. So I really don't need to pin this one either. I just have to make sure that the edges stay right close together on the edges, and that I do my 1/4 inch seam. And then once I have it all done, I will press it, and then I'll attach my red border the same way that I'm attaching this white border right now. A lot of people would call this piping, even though it's not filled or anything. It's a small white band, so I don't call it that. I actually just call it a thin strip myself, and it really does add a lot to a quilt as far as contrast and design and stuff, just by adding a thin strip to a quilt. I think it really gives it a lot of dimension. When I do this, I line it up. I put my 2 fingers down here because I know that it's lined up right here, and I'll sew right up to my fingers, and then I'll line up the next portion again. And I'll do the same thing. I'll have fabric overhanging and I'll trim that up so it's nice and straight. Almost to the end. And before I iron this one open, I'll actually sew on the other end too, and I'll iron both of them at the same time. And we're done. When that opens up, I'll have a 1/4 inch there and a 1/4 inch there, which will leave me a 1/2 inch white seam all the way around. So that actually adds quite a bit, a 1/2 inch on both sides and both ends. Do that twice, that's adding quite a bit of width to your quilt. Anyways, I'm going to do the other side now. Thank you. Okay guys, I basically have all of my white strips sewn on. I sewed on the ends and then the 2 sides. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to sew on the red. This has a seam here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this on this side so the seam will be on this side so they don't line up. And I'll sew on the bottom and top, and then I'll do the same on the sides. You want to make sure that you keep alternating your seams so they don't go together, because when you have a lot of seams together in one area, it bunches up. So you want to make sure that you do that. But so far this is how it's going, and I will iron these, and I'll sew on this to here with a 1/4 inch seam, and then I will sew it on, and I'll cut off the extra, and then I'll take the extra and I'll attach it to that end over there and sew on that end, and then I'll do the same on the sides. Is I'm going to have to sew on a piece to the edge and do the sides also. And that's basically it, and I will have one more white going around the red, and then my top will be basically done, and this will be about the size of your top. My bed is a queen size bed, and it comes over to the edge on both sides, so it should fit a full-size bed no problem. It's a lot bigger than what you would expect it to be with the instructions. It's not quite a queen size, but it's not that small either. I would say that it's probably a full size. It's a little short for a full size. You could have done one more row of blocks if you wanted to make it longer. I'm using mine for the back of my couch as a throw to help decorate my living room for the holidays. So if you want, you can give yours as a gift, or keep it for decorating as a holiday, or use it for your guest bedroom for the holidays. But in all, it's going to be a beautiful quilt when it's done. Thanks. Okay everyone, I attached the bottom and both sides and the top, and it's all attached now. I'm not sure if I'm going to put another border around of white and then layer it, but I am done for today, and I am going to be traveling and won't be back until after Thanksgiving, so hopefully we'll be able to finish this quilt when I get back. And I hope all of you have a nice holiday Thanksgiving, and I'll see you when I get back. Love you all. Bye. Hi everyone, I'm getting ready to make the back on my quilt. I can't zoom out any further, but the top of my quilt is underneath here, and what I did is I took my fabric, and this is the width of the fabric from here to here, and I cut it about the length of the quilt top. Now, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to piece this piece onto here. But I also want to put on my quilt block on the back, which will probably go somewhere right about here, or down in the corner. I'll probably try to line it up so it's right here. But what I'm going to do when I do this is I'm going to iron this over 1/4 inch all the way around, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sew this on top of this. I'm not going to piece it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to applique it on, and I might actually sew in the ditch and sew in the ditch here so it's on there nice and firm onto this piece of fabric. Not through all 3 pieces, but onto this piece. So that's how I'm going to attach that to the back end. Now, how I'm going to do this is going to be a 1/4 inch seam right here. Well, if I do a 1/4 inch seam here and a 1/4 inch seam there, it's not going to line up where it's looking like it is seamless. It doesn't look. It'll look like you have a double blue line here. So to actually get this to line up and sew properly is I'm going to have to cut off a 1/4 inch on here, on this one here. I'm going to cut off 1/4 inch all the way down the edge of it. That way when I sew it on here, I'll actually have a 1/4 inch seam where it will actually look like it's just part of the quilt. It won't even look like it is like it's pieced. It'll look like one wide piece of fabric. It's very difficult to do that, to actually have it line up, especially on straight lines like this. It's actually easier to do like on the snowflakes or in between the snowflakes on the green. You have less chance, and if there's a little bit of wiggle, you have a little bit of wiggle room where it's not going to show as much. But I'm going to try to do it right on the blue. I'm going to cut off 1/4 inch, which the 1/4 inch will be right on the edge of the blue, just about all the way down. And by doing that, I'll actually have it, the blue is a 1/4 inch thick, so I'll actually have it here. With that being 1/4 inch thick, it'll actually be just like this. And you won't even notice that it is pieced together. It'll actually look really nice. Anyways, that's what I'm doing right now is I'm going to cut that, sew these together. Then my next step is I still had some of my red left. And sometimes if I have a fabric like on the top of my quilt, like here, sometimes what I'll do is I will actually sew this all the way around to make a border. What that does on the back, it'll border out the back, and it'll also tie the front into the back. So I'm not going to have a white trim on both sides of the red, but I will have the red here to help basically hold it down. It'll border it out. Sometimes if you don't border it out, it kind of looks funny. But what my main concern is right now is sewing this down, and then after I'm done that, I'm much wider than my edge, so then I will basically attach a red on that side, and then I'll see where I need to cut it on this side, then I'll attach a red on this side, and then what I'll do is I'll attach a red on the top, bring it down, cut off my extra on the bottom, put another red, so it's the exact same size as my top. And once I'm at that point, I will be able to actually open up my bag of batting, and I'll take this into the living room, or I can do it on my bed, and I'll actually have this the back upside down, then the batten, then the top, and I'll have it all squared up. And what I'll do is once it's all squared and looking really good, is I'll start tying it. Once it's all tied, then I'll pin on the top of the binding all the way around once it's tied. And once the binding is all pinned on the top, I'll do a 1/4 inch seam all the way around the top, and then I'll fold it over under, and then I'll go around again to make sure that the binding catches on the backside. And the quilt will be done. So we're just about finished. Like I said, I have enough here, enough red, to basically border my back. So this is I'll show you where I'm at once I'm at that point. Okay, I have this sewn together. Many of you probably can't see it, but this is where the seam is. So I actually didn't do too bad. I wish I would have gotten a little bit wider, but for the most part, it's not that noticeable. Came out actually better than I expected it to. And now what I'm going to do is I need to, before I even attach my thing to it, is I need to get this approximately to the same size as the top. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to, like I said earlier, I have these, and I am going to attach these on this side first. Okay, and then once this side is attached, I'm going to sew 2 of these together and attach it on this side, and then once it's attached and I iron it out, I will actually have it the exact same width as the edge of my top. Okay, and once that's done, and I have it the same width as my edge, what I will do is I will take it and I will cut off the edge there 5.5. I know this is 5.5 inches, so if I cut off 5 inches over there with my 1/4 inch seam, I should have it about the same width. And then I'll do the same thing on the top, is I'll attach this border on the top, and then I'll pull it down until it's even with the edge, and then I'll cut off 5 inches and I'll attach the bottom, and it will be approximately the same size as my top, and then I can start to tie it together. So my first step now is I need to either cut this white edge off, or what I can do with a 1/4 inch seam, some of that edge is going to show, or I can just bring it right into the edge and do a 1/4 inch seam. But I think I'll do much better if I take this and I cut it with a straight edge. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll probably go right on the edge of the candies. That way, when I do my 1/4 inch seam, it will be right in the half of the candies. So if I cut it right on the edge of the candies with the 1/4 inch seam, it'll be right in the middle of the candies. So I'll have this border, the border right in the center of the candies, and it will look like this, which isn't too bad. It's hard to get it nice and even. I could even do it on the snowflakes, but I find that in the candies there's enough playroom that you're not going to see it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off about 1.5 inches of this, so it's, well, about 1 inch of this, so it's right, so I can attach this to it. Anyways, that's where I'm at right now. Okay guys, I have my edge sewn on this edge. It's not on the bottom yet. But what I'm doing is I have this right up to the edge of my white, all the way down. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that it's nice and taut. If it goes over a little bit, that's fine too. That's why I like doing these borders, is because you can have it over just a hair and it's not going to matter that much. Or it can be slightly twisted a little bit and it's not going to show that much. But I'm going to try to get it as straight as possible on that edge, all the way over, and I'm going to flatten it out as I go. And come over to this side, keep on flattening it. This works really well on the floor too. Now what I'm going to do is I can see, let's see if I can get you to see, I can see where the edge is, which this is the blue, and I need to sew this on so it comes over. If I do it right here, it's not going to match up that much. So what I'm going to do is, so that I have it even on both sides, is I'm actually going to just pull this about an inch over. Like I said, I really don't care how wide the red parts are. And what I'll do is I will actually, this will be over about an inch on this side and on that side. So my red's not going to be quite as wide. Now I know where I'm going to cut. I'm going to actually cut my fabric right on this line all the way up. And that will be that side, and I'll attach that side. So I'm going to do that right now. Like I said, these can always be trimmed down to fit the top later. Right now I'm basically doing the border around the edge rough. It can be over a half an inch or an inch all the way around, but when we're all said and done and it's time to bind it, this border here on the back side might be a little bit smaller than the border on the quilt, which is perfectly fine. I just have this border on the back side to anchor the back fabric. So now I know where I'm cutting, so I'm going to shut you off. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to sew two of these together and sew it on this side, so both sides will be done. Then all I have to do is straighten out one end, attach an end to it, and do the same thing on the other end. I'll slide that down and I'll trim off exactly where I need to be to finish the quilt. Having fabric like this with the dots is really cool because you know that you can get it straight, fairly straight, with lining up the candies and stuff, or the lines. So I'm going to finish doing this and see how it comes out. Hi guys, it's John. I have this edge sewn on. It's hanging off about an inch. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to bring you over to this side also. And this side here is hanging off about half an inch, which that's perfectly alright. What I have done now is I have both sides sewn on, this side and this side. So now what I need to do is I need to cut this so it's straight. Right now it's pretty rigid and it's not very straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, fold it in half, and try to make it as straight as possible while I do this. But I'm going to fold this in half. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it would be nice if it was perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. What I'm going to do again is I'm going to fold it in half again. And then I'm going to take it over to my cutting board and I'm going to cut a straight edge on here. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'll be right back. Hi everyone. I got my top attached. I have it up there. It's lined up with my quilt top. I trimmed off the edge and sewed it on. So now I have just one edge left, and that's my bottom edge. I'm a little bit over on this side by about half an inch, and I'm a little bit over on this side about an inch. It doesn't really matter. At the top, just about where I need to be. So I need to figure out where I'm going to cut the bottom. Now, not all of you are going to probably want to put a border on your back side of your quilt. I did. Now what I'm going to do to figure out what I need to do to attach my bottom is I need to find out where, which I'll fold this up so I can see my edge. I'll fold this up and I will lay this down. Actually, all I really need to do is find out right about here on the candy spots. So I know that I need to be on that red, and I'm going to have it over a little bit. So I need to cut off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 candies. And it should be 10 candies all the way across. That's a good approximation, is about 10 candies. 7, 8, 9, 10. And 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Sorry, 9 candies. I'm leaving the red one. So I want to be on this side of it. That will give me about an inch play. So I'll have an inch. Hi everyone. This is John. I got my border all put on my back. So my back and my top are completely done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to layer what I have done. Basically what I'll do is I will remove this one. I'll take my top and remove it, and I'll put my back down and have it nice and flat. I'll take my back, this is the back of my quilt. Now, like I said, you don't have to put a border around your back. I put a border around my back because I like the look of it. I think that it anchors the back side nice and neat. But if you want, you can take this material and have it right out to the edge, and when you bind it, you just bring it right around and bind it right onto your back and material. Okay, I got a full size, which is 81 by 96 inches of quilt batten. It's very, very inexpensive. Okay, I cut off the bottom edge. I still need to cut all the way around the edges. You can see that I'm a little bit over on the bottom edge, but as soon as I get it all cut around the edges, I'm going to actually take this to the living room floor and lay down on the floor, because I can actually smooth it out better on the floor than I can on my own mattress, and it'll be a lot better because I won't have it hanging over the edges and stuff, and I'll be able to actually line it up so it lines up really nicely, and I'll be able to have a nice border on the back and on the front, and then my binding is a dark green, which will look really nice. It'll pull out the dark greens in the little trees and all the other dark greens that are in it. Okay, I'm back, guys. I trimmed all the edges. It's about 1/4 inch over to a 1/2 inch over all the way around, which that's about where I wanted it to be. That way I have a little bit of play. What some people would do is they would actually wrap this edge up over and around to do their binding, but I'm not doing that. I'm actually putting the binding on that will wrap around both sides, so it gives me a nice firm edge. It's a little bit 1/4 inch all the way over, but it's nice and